Oops. Almost, ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Taos. My name is Stacy Matlock. I'm the editor of the Taos News, and I'm here with a wonderful set of guests for this week's weekly education forum. I say weekly, we did miss last week. I apologize to all of you who I know were waiting to hear from Dr. Lillian Torrez and Anita Bringas like usual. I'm afraid I had a lot of prepping to do for last week's political forum for the House District 42 candidates. But we are back this week. I'm delighted to be back with Dr. Lillian Torrez, Superintendent of Taos Municipal Schools, and she has some very special guests with her, and Anita Bringas, who is the Strategic Support Manager at University of New Mexico Taos branch. Welcome, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Dr. Torres, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Stacy, Anita, Paula, and Sienna, and our community. We're very excited to bring you some additional information, as we're doing every week, about Taos Municipal Schools and some of the work that we're doing. We really are trying to reach out to every family, and little by little we are making sure that every child is connected to internet. Every once in a while we'll find a hotspot that breaks or something, that there's an issue. But remember that at the high school next door at the vocational building, every day between Monday and Thursday between 8 and 2, you can park right in the back of the school, and we do have IT assistance. And then on Fridays, it's by appointment. So if you have any issues, any family members, students that need assistance with your device or anything that has to do with internet connection, if something isn't working, you can bring it to our IT hub there, and we will help you with it. We did have a few students yesterday, so that was really nice that people are coming in and taking advantage of that. We also have our drive-by IT that happens at every school. If you would like to know the hours of those, please call the school for that. So right now, we are slowly bringing in our pre-K students. We were doing one-on-one last week. So hopefully by next week, we will start our 5-to-1 and our pods of 5. And then we're also beginning with special education students, one-on-one, up to a pod of 5 at the most. So we're starting slowly. We want to make sure that our students and staff are protected. And it is very important that we stay alert and make sure that we have the CDC guidelines in place at all times. And so we're really working very diligently on that. But we're also doing many, many things in the community. And today I have invited Paula Oxeby Hyatt. She is the community schools coordinator at Enos Elementary, and also at Enos is the Nurturing Center. And I've invited Sienna Sanderson, who will present some of the projects that we're doing out in the community. So at this time, Paula, would you like to start?
Thanks, Dr. Torres. Hello, community in Taos. I'm very honored to be here with you to let you know a little bit about what we've been doing in the community schools since the beginning of the school year. So we started the school year with a survey because it's very important to us to hear from the parents and to know what's going on and what their needs are. Our survey asks questions about, how COVID has impacted families, and how can we as a school, as a community school, support our students. We had 327 responses, which is great. So I thank you to all the families who took the time to fill the survey. And the reason why we do surveys is because that's how we base our actions. You know, we base our actions in what you are telling us that is important to you, and how we need to proceed to support you. So we've been making phone calls to all the families to discuss the survey's responses and to make sure that we could refer them to the services that the families say that they needed. Along those lines, some of the things that families said was that they needed a little help creating a learning space for their children. So we were able to give out around 90 desks for our students, so that now they have a place where to do their homework, where to keep all their supplies organized. We also heard from the parents that school supplies is a cost that you can see every year, right? It's an extra, but you kind of like expect it every year. But this year with COVID, many families have lost their jobs, or they have their hours reduced. So all of a sudden, school supplies became a burden for them. So we were able to get through donations and partnerships to give school supplies to all our students. We're not done. We're still going through the survey, making sure that we are responsive to the family needs, the needs that families have identified, and we were committed to continue, working in supporting our families. We know that these are, challenging times, and we want to remind our families that even though the schools might slowly be opening, might not be totally open to our students, we're still there to support them. So please reach out if you have any needs, and we'll be able to, work with you and support you. One of the other services that we've been having for our families is home visits. And I'm going to pass the baton to Sienna, because she's the one who has been doing those, and she's learned a lot from doing those home visits.
Thank you to Stacy and the Taos News for allowing us to present some information about what we're trying to do in our community and to support our students and our families who are really, many are struggling right now. And what we've done is we've worked closely with the community school and with Paula to ensure that we are really addressing those needs, as Paula has explained. And right now we're seeing a lot of basic needs are some of the highest needs. It's just basic things like food, they're needing assistance with bills. And there's also the question of internet. I know that the school district has made a tremendous effort to get the internet up and running, but we're still finding families out there who are struggling with it. And it's not necessarily just technical. I think that's an important distinction to be made, is that they're just struggling with doing online schooling. And it's not what kids want to be doing. Oftentimes they'd much rather be with their friends. And I think we're seeing a real struggle for families at their level of engagement is hindered by just their not really feeling comfortable on the internet. And that's something that's going to have to be dealt with over time, because we are seeing this for the long haul. So we're trying to offer support to those families. I'm working with Taos Behavioral Health, and they have created an alternative setting for some of the students in the district, so that they can get support in accessing their education online, because their homes may have it, but it's spotty. And then it's not only just, as I said, not just being online, it's being with somebody. These are students who are accustomed to being with a teacher or with somebody when they're learning, and now they're isolated. And so we're really trying to help support connecting that, but there is limited occupancy. We don't have a lot of access. Taos Behavioral Health has, I think, about 70 students right now. And also Taylor Echemundi is trying to work with the county and to establish some of the community centers for pods. So we're looking at that. It's still in the works, but we do know that a lot of students are struggling with just the concept of online learning. And we also are encountering thanks to the community school survey, we're really being able to identify families who need assistance with rent and utilities. And, you know, I was just saying to Paula this morning that what we're going to see as the weather cools down, that people are going to be stretched in trying to determine between paying for their utility, for their heating bills versus their internet. And that's going to be a real struggle for people. And so I want to make sure that we're trying to get ahead of that so that people that are going to face those difficulties, that we can be of some assistance. And I've been trying to find out what's happening with some of the CARES money that's come into the county, because we know there's about $1.5 million in the county, but we're not, except for what I saw in the Taos News last week about some of that money from the town is going to be used for the small businesses. But we would like to see some of that funding to be used for helping families pay their rents and bills, because that's really become an issue for many, many families. I have been doing, Andy Grief and I have been doing some visits with Torrez. We did a whole like 15 houses yesterday, just bringing supplies, art supplies to families. Sometimes all summer we brought food. We're continuing to do that as we need. And as families say they need things, that we need to get to them. And so we are doing, you know, we're staying with our masks, we're driving up, we're not going inside, we're just really encountering these families outside. But it's a great way to check in. And then we're throwing in a little jump roping or that kind of stuff to just help. And I really feel it's important for children and their families to know that the schools want to continue to make connection to them. And making connection to those families is key to making them feel that there's some support system for them through the school system. And so we really enjoyed going out. It's been difficult sometimes just because I think there's so many obstacles to these families that we're really seeing. I wish we could say everybody is delighted in working on the internet, but we can't say that. I think it's a real struggle, particularly for young children, to get online, and that's where they're spending so much time. But we understand, I think kids understand the obstacle that the situation that the country, and not to mention our own particular county, is in, but we want to keep people safe, and I think children understand that, and as do their families. But I think at the same time, we're also getting people very anxious about their education. And but I think it's important that we continue to make contact. I so appreciate being able to collaborate with the community schools in helping to identify these needs, and we'll continue. It's a daunting task, quite honestly, and we'll just continue to keep at it. And we appreciate the opportunity to share that information and encourage people to reach out if they're in need. Thank you.
Sienna,
Yeah.
I have a question. So is there a way, and this might involve Dr. Torrez as well, is there a way for community members who want to be able to help?
Mm-hmm.
How can they help?
Well, you know, it's a tricky thing right now, because, you know, we used to be able to have people just come into the schools, and they've been able to read the students, they've been able to help in after school. I mean, there are lots of ways in which a lot of different venues in which people could come into the schools. Right now, we're not having people come into the schools. So really, right now, financial support, that would be a super assistance. We need to have people, if people wanted to create a fund somewhere to help with rent and utilities, that would be tremendous. Because I think getting access to it, we know that I think there's some CARES funding coming through the MFA, Mortgage Finance Authority, but we won't see that for a couple months. And we have a lot of families that are 2 months behind, and you know, we don't want to see them homeless. And I know there's this thing about the moratorium, but the moratorium, if once it's lifted, they still have to pay all that rent back. There's no rent forgiveness with the moratorium. And so once that moratorium is lifted, those families are going to be under financial obligation to pay back all that rent. And so I think some people are just bailing because they know they can't make it. So we're seeing, I think Florence Mieta is speaking to the issue that many families are just doubling up or tripling up, and they're just living in larger groups in a house because they can't afford to stay in an apartment that they can't pay for because their hours have been reduced, as we've found out through our surveys, and or they've lost their employment. So if the community really wants to help, I would love to see people help create a fund. I don't know where it would be held because I was hoping that the county or the town would be able to do that. But we need to have a fund that can help people pay for rent and utilities. I would say that's one big one right now.
So, yeah, for example, the New Mexican hosts one called the Empty Stocking Fund, and usually it's used during the winter holidays to help people. And people apply, they say specifically what they need funds for, and a group reviews those and then awards it. Are you thinking something like that, perhaps working through the schools, because families already know the schools, where a fund could be set up? And I don't know, Lillian, is that something that the school district has discussed?
We have not done any kind of website donation. We've always gone through the Taos Community Foundation for that. But we do have sometimes people that come in. It's really difficult now because our buildings are closed. In other words, you can't walk in to donate money. But we can make an appointment so we can go open it like we do for anything else. What we could do is research what it would take to put a donation on our, because we don't have a nonprofit organization, which we've been talking about for the last 3 to 4 years. And it would be wonderful if we could do a nonprofit, which is another entity. It would be another entity of Taos Municipal Schools. But for instance, when we did the hams for 350 staff members a couple of years ago, we had donations that would come, and really it was my project. So I went and collected from every business owner, and then we had an activity fund specifically for that. And then I would, the finance director would put it in a particular activity fund just for that. And we actually ended up being a little bit short, but I made it whole anyway. But that is potentially something we can do. Sienna, what are we doing now when people are helping? Because people have been helping, but when you guys are given a check for something, do you guys give it to?
We haven't, we have not solicited checks, honestly. And right now, when somebody comes and requests funding for or need for a utility bill or rent, we've been seeking funding through the community school in Albuquerque has what they call an opportunity fund, but they had directed us to go to our local communities to look for the CARES funding, because CARES funding has been used for rent and utilities across the country, but it's the determination of each municipality or county entity to determine how that fund will be used. So right now it's still up in the air. I'm pretty sure the town is not going to allow the funds to be used for that. I am not sure about the county. There's still that in discussion. The other entity has been Youth Heartline has a little bit of money that's helping us. We have the Christian Concern, and then I have a small donor who's been helping, but that's really it for helping with these needs. And yes, Stacy, I wanted to ask you, when you mentioned the stocking fund, is that handled through the New Mexican newspaper? How is that fund held?
They partner with the, I think, I might be telling you wrong, but I believe this is correct, that they partner with the Santa Fe Community Foundation, which, similar to our TCF. And I think Anita is going to step in here in a minute and talk a little bit about a project that perhaps is underway. I know that the Enchanted Circle COAD was trying to do something. I just know that part of the issue would be, so Enchanted Circle COAD is like thinking of everyone. You all are focused on families with children in the school. And so I was just curious, and the Taos News would be more than happy to help however we can do that. For example, even if it is specific items. I know sometimes families just need specific items. We already partner with the men's shelter that has worked really well. We have a place where people can drop off donations for them since they are closed during the day. And
Right.
all last winter, it was amazing, the amount of just
Yeah,
physical donations that we could just walk right over to the men's shelter. And
right.
so anyway, Anita, did you want to step in and mention something you all are working on?
Thanks, Stacy. First, let me just say it's great to be back with you all again, Dr. Torrez, and really wonderful to. I just really want to thank you for the work that you all are doing. Not only, can you all hear me? It says that I'm muted. You can. Okay, thanks. The work that you all are doing, not only to educate our community's youth, but also to tend to and look to how we can address some of these other issues that the community and the students and their families are facing. So I'll share with you, I'm through UNM-Taos, I'm a member of the Enchanted Circle Community Organizations Active in Disaster, EC COAD. And through one of our subcommittees, a social services committee, this is an issue that has been coming up again and again. And really the whole purpose of the EC COAD is to identify the needs that come up in the community and figure out ways that collaboratively we can work together to address those. So recently the Social Services Committee has started looking very closely at what we as a COAD, what we as a community can do to support the families and the individuals that are struggling with paying their rent, that are potentially facing eviction notices, that are having trouble paying their utilities or behind in paying their utility bills. And so there's a couple of things that have come up. One, you may all be aware that Kit Carson Electric Co-op has their members helping members initiative, where for folks that have the means, as they're paying their own electric bill, they can round up, and that goes into a fund to help support other members who may be struggling to make ends meet, to help them pay their electric bills. So using that as a model, we're looking at reaching out to some of the other utility companies to see if, during these times that through, gas and water, et cetera, if there's other programs that they can implement to either defer payment or, in best case scenario, eliminate the payment or waive it for folks that are in those situations. I also, so more to come on that. It's a big conversation. It's a big thing to tackle. I'll certainly keep you all in the loop and bring you into that conversation and how we can work together to specifically serve the students and their families. I also want to remind the community of the Taos Connects, which is an online, primarily volunteer hub, which is a means to match community need for volunteers with individuals that have time to spare. But it's not just to connect the volunteer, the needs and offers in time and volunteer. It's also a means to connect needs for very specific things. For example, Dr. Torrez had put a call out to the community for masks. So you can put, I need 500 masks, and then folks can go on and say, okay, I've got a sewing machine and I can fulfill that supply need, or I need whatever it might be. So it's not just for volunteers, but it's for products or supplies, and matching those up with folks that have the ability to donate to meet those specific needs. So in a moment here, I'll put that website into the Facebook chat for you all to take a look at. And as this conversation continues through EC COAD, I'm happy to bring any of you to the conversation that might have some ideas or networks that we may be able to work together to leverage to support our community in that way.
Thank you, Anita. Dr. Torrez, was there anything else you wanted to?
One thing that we would have to look at, since we're not a nonprofit entity, we could. I think the division is we just can't pay people's rents and utilities with our Taos Municipal Schools. So we would have to maybe develop a nonprofit organization or a way that we can collect it, because what we've been doing is using other partners to do this for us. So, or we could talk to one of our partners, Taos Community Foundation, or to see if they would be willing to collect the funds, because we have the public schools is taxpayer money, and it's very strict. You get audit findings for every teeny tiny thing of the 1,000 things we do. We could look into, I could call our attorney to see how, if we have to start a nonprofit organization. And then we could put something on our website that where people could start donating money. And we have never done that. We've always asked our partners to do it. So that would be something we could research and see how Taos Municipal Schools could start helping with paying the rents and the utilities.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Torrez. And thank you, Paula and Sienna, for joining us. Anita, did you want to carry on?
Thank you, Stacy. So yeah, so just a couple updates from the UNM-Taos perspective. You know, we work to support our students not only in their academic learning and instruction and what that means for remote studies, but also in these other ways too. And especially as we get further and further into the remote work and the remote learning, how we're able to support our students, our faculty and staff to make sure that they're maintaining the balance and good, mental and emotional health, and supporting each other in those ways. So I really appreciate all the work that's happening in the community to do so. So UNM-Taos recently announced that we will continue with our remote work and remote instruction through the spring semester, which begins mid-January and goes through mid-May. We feel with the upcoming winter season and the anticipated influx of the regular flu virus in conjunction with the potential increase in COVID cases, that it really is in the best interest of our campus community and the community at large to stay online and remote. We did this fall, and we likely will in the spring offer a very few select face-to-face courses for those that really need that hands-on instruction and support career, technical, and workforce training. For those courses, we of course will continue to practice very strict COVID-safe practices and distancing and protective gear and screening, temperature checks, things of that nature to make sure that we're keeping folks safe. So more to come as well on that. Keep an eye out for our spring schedule, and we'll be announcing that in future sessions. But today I really wanted to talk more about the upcoming elections that we have. That election day is November 3rd, but as we all know that the early voting will begin soon. The mail-in voting as well is available there for several reasons. This election is going to be very important. But I wanted to share particularly some information that is going to be on that ballot, and that's in regard to the general obligation bonds. And hopefully you can all see my screen share here with the slides. Yes. So the general obligation bonds are essentially bonds or debts for money that's borrowed by a government that is paid off by the state. It has to get approved by the voters. It does include a property tax. But one thing I want to make very clear is that the bonds that are on this ballot do not increase property taxes. They do not increase taxes. They're a continuation of an existing tax that is currently paid through the property taxes. And this year there's bond A, bond B, and bond C that will be on the ballot. Bond A is for aging and long-term services, that's senior centers. Bond B is for library acquisitions, and bond C is for higher education facilities. I like to say to remember your ABCs. Again, bond A for senior centers, bond B for libraries, and bond C for education. I'm going to work backwards though and start with bond C, which gives funding for higher education facilities, capital projects. Now this is improvement for existing buildings and this benefits higher education institutions across the state. So with the passage of bond C will mean $156 million for colleges and universities across New Mexico. Specifically, it'll mean $2 million for UNM-Taos and an estimated 20 new jobs for Taos County. The specific project that UNM-Taos is looking to implement is being to improve fire and safety construction at Clower campus, as well as ADA access in our parking and walkway areas. Bond B, the funding for library acquisitions, means $9.7 million across the state, and that goes for all academic, public, school, and tribal libraries. So here you can see the breakdown of what that would means for the libraries throughout all of Taos County, 9.7 across the state and 135,000 for Taos County. And then we have, these are some of the projects that the Bond B for Library supports: digital resources, equipment, journals, books, and technology. And then we have the Bond A, the funding for senior citizen centers, which would issue $33 million for capital improvement for senior citizen centers across the state, including $220,000 for Taos County senior centers. This is a sample ballot. I just want to encourage you to flip the ballot over. Oftentimes the bonds are listed on the back of the ballot, and sometimes folks don't remember to flip it over. Here you'll see both, typically the ballots will have in both English and Spanish for all of the bond items. So here, just again, remember your ABCs and vote on the bonds: Bond A for senior centers, Bond B for libraries, and Bond C for education. I also have information here for voter registration and some important dates and deadlines coming up there. And additional information for the library bonds: Kathleen Knoth, our library director, is an expert on the bonds for the libraries and what that means for the UNM-Taos and the Taos Public and other county libraries, as well as libraries across the state. And any other information you'd like on Bond C, you're welcome to reach out to me or visit the website that you see there. And with that, if there's any questions anybody has, I'm happy to entertain them.
Thank you very much, Anita. That was a great presentation. So what is it? Are there some things you think people just don't understand about how the bonds work and how that might affect property taxes? And
thank you, Stacy. Yes, so before I got involved with UNM-Taos and more involved in the community and in civic engagement, I was confused about all of this stuff. I didn't know what census meant and why that was important. I didn't know, why even registering to vote and making sure my vote was heard and I cast my ballot was important. And I certainly didn't really understand what the bonds meant. So yes, it's important to know that the bonds were originally approved several years ago, and there was at that time an increase in property taxes for homeowners across the state. Now, each time the last several years that the bonds have come up, it means essentially what the voting is on is voting yes on those bonds approves the continuation of that property tax to allow for that funding to be released for those particular items for bonds A, B, and C. The way that I understand it, a no vote if the bonds were not to pass, I don't believe, and I'll have to confirm this and I'll reach out to you, Stacy, to let you know, but I don't believe that the property taxes would be reduced if the bonds are not passed. So that's a clarification I'll have to get for you. But it's not a new tax. Taxes will not increase. It just means you'll continue paying whatever property taxes you currently are. Each of those bonds are a separate item on the ballot. So it is important that, voters stay informed and vote, in the way that they feel is best for the community statewide and also specifically for Taos County. They would bring, direct money into the county for UNM-Taos, for the public library here in Taos, in Cuesta, in Red River, the school libraries, and then of course the senior centers would benefit all the senior centers throughout the county.
thank you very much, Anita, for that. Dr. Torrez, anything else that before we end, so that people have a moment to get water before the governor comes on with her education update?
Coming on. I just wanted to put in the plug for the masks. If anybody still has any energy left to make more cloth masks, please let us know. You can call central office and come up to the door and we're able to get the masks. Some people have just brought in 12. Some have brought in 50, 80. However many you have, would be wonderful. So we appreciate that so much. And we plan to use those. Actually, some of the teachers are actually still teaching remote from their classrooms and they're in there all by themselves, but they still need to wear the mask. So I just wanted to thank the entire community for so much work that they're doing, from the Rotary Club to the Taos Community Foundation to Taos Alive. So many, we have 30 partners, and we appreciate UNM-Taos and all the work that Anita is doing, and plenty of all of the people together. Together is how we're going to make it, and we really appreciate everything. Just to note, the EBT cards, we're going to get the second round. I'm sending a letter to parents in the next couple of hours, and it's going to give you all of the directions on getting your EBT cards. Some of those are up to $1,200 for groceries. So please look for the letter coming up. And of course, we always give you a phone call to tell you to please check your email. So that's all I have, Stacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you both very much, and have a great rest of your week and weekend. See you next week.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Appreciate it. And if I may, I just want to clarify, Kathleen Knoth, who, like I said, is expert on bonds, she just clarified that if the bonds do not pass, property taxes do not get reduced. The property taxes will stay the same, but those funds will go toward some other project or program. So I just want to make sure I clarified that, and thank Kathleen for that fact.
Thank you very much, Anita.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stacy and Taos News for all your hard work with this.
Absolutely. Thank
So
you.
much.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.